When we think about hospitality, this work of hospitality in this season, when there is uncertainty and risk and we are measuring it in new ways, we have to think intentionally. But at its base, hospitality reminds us of our choices. In the very beginning, we've talked about the genesis and this story of the question between hostility and hospitality that Abraham and Sarah had as they greeted strangers. And here we see it again and again in Jesus' work. This work of hospitality reminds us that even our stuff, even our own homes, when we welcome a guest, isn't about us. Our stuff isn't just about us. Hospitality is this practice of opening ourselves to the needs of others, to the well-being of others, to the presence of others. And that is hard. Ask anyone who works in the hospitality industry. It is hard. People can show you their very worst. And this work of welcoming, this work of continuing to embrace, this work of continuing to offer yourself, it pushes into a practice. Now, I'm not saying people shouldn't have boundaries. Boundaries are important. And we'll talk about that next week. But I want to speak to this work of generosity. Generosity of spirit, generosity of presence, generosity of how we give and share and offer ourselves. See, here at the Abbey, we do this work in a lot of ways. We are fueled by your gifts, the ways that people take ownership. I have heard folks say, well, we don't want to be just people, or those people just give money. And I just want to tell you as a pastor or from any nonprofit leader, like you should not put a just before anybody giving money. Watch where you put just. Why do you put that? Let's offer some reflection, because I can tell you that that's the fuel that moves us forward. When we think about 10% of our coffee bar, we do that collectively. We do that communally. It is not a great business plan. I will be honest. There have been times when sending the check from the coffee bar felt like a choice of existing or giving. We will turn 10 this November, and we have never once decided to just go ahead and keep that 10% for ourselves. But there have been times when I have really thought we should. There have been moments when I even brought it to the board and said, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if we should sign our next lease. And nobody has ever wavered in that our work of generosity matters. It is central to who we are. And if we are going to exist, we are going to exist out of generosity. And if we are going to close, we're going to close because we gave it all away. Generosity is hard work, collectively, individually. And our nonprofit partners so appreciate these funds, no matter their size, because they are not bound to any particular strings. They are not given in a way that says you can only use it for this particular moment. They are given in the trust that they know their needs, that they know their mission, and that they will deploy it with care. It allows us to come alongside partners who know more than we do and to fuel that work in the world. And it is hard. Last year, during the pandemic's very start, our very first month, the partner check was like $100. And then one of our leaders stepped in and added to it so that work of generosity could continue. Because generosity is this percentage and intention. It's not about zeros and commas when we think about giving. And I know that talking about money makes us nervous. We've been trained to not talk about who has what money or how gets paid what money or how much this thing costs compared to the other. And maybe that was on purpose. Like maybe there's a reason. Because at its heart, our budgets say something about our values. whether it's a company or the city or the church or our individual budgets. They say something about what we value. And if we aren't thinking about how much we pay for certain things, then we aren't asking questions about our values. Do we value early childhood education? We say that we value children, we value life. Is that reflected in our state budget? Is that reflected in how we support young people or those caregivers and teachers and nurturers of our youngest neighbors? We have to get a little more comfortable talking about money. And I know this might seem surprising because most churches maybe don't talk about this, but Jesus spends most of his time talking about money. He's not talking about sex. Like literally, he's not talking about sex, people. Despite what you might have heard at the State Board of Education meeting. This is one of those moments about money. Zacchaeus is a tax collector. And for us, we might have these, death and taxes, blah, blah, blah. But for the people living in Jesus' community, the tax collectors are like the middle management of the Roman Empire. They are the people who have sold out their being and their people. And the gift of being a tax collector in the Roman Empire is that you collect the taxes for Rome. You got a lot of authority backing you up. And then you extort people for more money. You get to add on whatever you'd like. People have no ability to respond, to push back, to hold up in court this injustice. So the tax collectors, nobody likes, and they are extraordinarily wealthy. They have every reason to keep this system of oppression going. Nobody likes the tax collectors. It's such a bad thing, you shouldn't even go to their house. So Zacchaeus is one of these tax collectors. Zacchaeus, it turns out, is also not very tall, an experience that I share. And because he's not very tall and there's a crowd gathering and he has this interest in this man named Jesus, he climbs a tree, which I'm going to say I wouldn't do. I would just slip through. So he can see. And then Jesus invites himself to Zacchaeus' house, which might seem like a bold move to us, like just extend your own invitation to someone else's house. But the real bold move is that he's going to the house of someone you are not supposed to dine with. You are not supposed to be in their home. It is shameful to be next to this person who is committing such violence and economic injustice against their own people. And so Jesus goes to Zacchaeus. And they have this time together. We don't have the details. We have to imagine the meal, the time, the sharing, the conversation. It seems that Zacchaeus was ready. He had climbed a tree. Like he wants this to happen. He needs a way out, perhaps, of this system that is keeping him small and separated and not giving life to his spirit and soul. So by the end of this encounter, he says to Jesus, I will give half of everything away. Everything. And I will repay with interest those that I have wronged. Zoom tight, Carly. I will repay with interest those that I have wronged. Okay. take a moment to offer blessings to Carly. Let's take a deep breath in and exhale. Jesus says, today salvation has come. Zacchaeus has changed everything about his finances, everything about his budget, everything about what he is going to do. And he didn't recite some kind of Jesus prayer that someone knocked on his door and asked him about. He didn't think about eternity. He thought about right now. And Jesus says, today salvation has come to this house. The way we interact with money is this way towards well-being, towards wholeness. Salvation is rooted in this nature of salve, of healing. This is a moment that brings healing not only to Zacchaeus, but to the whole community. This work of generosity of spirit, this work of hospitality that reminds us our stuff isn't just about us. It is life-giving. That's where Jesus, in the only time he names salvation, is when someone changes everything. May we have the courage. May it be so. Amen.